Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be reacting to the second school video, excuse me, how India plans to beat China in Africa. So, for those that don't know, China for the past few years, decade, however long, has been very, very integral in creating infrastructure in Africa. What they do is they go to these African countries and they say, "Hey, we'll build this. We'll give you a loan to do it, and then you got to pay us back, right?" And yeah, it doesn't always go well for these African countries. They tend to get stuck in the cycle of paying back a very, very high loan that they can't afford, and usually the quality of the built up infrastructure isn't the greatest. And then of course there's, if you go online, there's videos of the Chinese people that they send in to build these things treating the locals very poorly. Because you would think, okay, we're gonna come here, we're gonna set up this project, right? You would think they would hire locals. They don't hire locals, right? They send in their own Chinese workers to do that. And that's one of the big problems as well, because they promise like jobs for some of the locals, and they get a small amount, but then they have all their own people come in and do it. So but yeah, we're going to be watching the second school, how India plans to beat China in Africa. I'm interested because I don't really know the going ons in India's expanse into this territory. So yeah, if you want to check out the video directly, the link to the video will be in the description down below, so make sure you go and check that out. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
This is the country of Nigeria. Here, several Indian companies are making massive inroads with nearly $14 billion in investments.
Okay, it's pretty
Jindal
big.
Steel and Power, the third largest private steel producer in India, is injecting $3 billion into the Nigeria's steel industry.
See, I don't really see a lot of Jindal. I don't see a lot of Jindal. I do, well, I did a lot of GeoGuessr content. I got to get back to GeoGuessr grind. Remind me down below. But I don't remember seeing a lot of advertisements for Jindal Steel.
While Indorama Corporation is boosting its petrochemical facilities with an investment of $8 billion. Not just this, the Nigerian government has reached a $1 billion partnership with the Indian government to help strengthen production of defense equipment.
Nigeria has secured nearly $14 billion in pledges from Indian investors for...
Is it Nigeria that has a camp, a lot of French bases, or is that Niger? That might be Niger that had a lot of French bases in it. I can't quite remember.
Various sectors, including steel, petrochemicals, power generation, and defense.
At first glance, these investments might seem unusual, but if you observe carefully, these investments are part of a carefully calculated move by India, not only in Nigeria, but in the whole of Africa. If you zoom out on this map, you'll see India is adopting a similar strategy in other African countries like Kenya, Uganda, Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia, Ghana, Mauritius, Egypt, Togo, and Mali. Now, the obvious question is why? Why is India willing to commit such a massive amount of resources into Africa, especially in time of such political and economic turmoil on the continent?
Why indeed? Why indeed? Well, I mean, it's just to strengthen alliances, right? It's to, of course, potentially make money off of the investment as well. You build up these countries and they become valuable trade partners in the future. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll find out in the video, but yeah.
Africa, where protests are ongoing in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi.
Riot police, some on horseback, have been deployed in the capital, Nairobi.
Okay. The second school.
Almost 140 years ago, in 1884, the Berlin Conference kicked off the scramble for Africa, ushering in an era of European colonialism. The United Kingdom, Germany, France, Portugal, and Belgium, along with others, divided up the continent for their interests. Besides vast natural resources, Africa was also a valuable strategic location for controlling trade routes between Europe and its faraway colonies of India and Asia. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, Africa saw a wave of liberation movements, especially after World War II weakened European powers. From the 1940s to the 1970s, over 45 African countries achieved independence.
Yeah, in the 1900s, man, so many countries around the world got independence. It's crazy. If you just go and look at it, it's like like half the world was like, okay, hey, we're free from Britain. We're free from these European countries. We're gonna do our own thing now.
Pattern of African countries, South Africa joins the ranks of independent nations as the country becomes a republic and withdraws from the British Commonwealth of Nations.
The 21st century has seen a renewed scramble for Africa, but this time the intentions are different. One of the key players in this new era is India. With a shared history of colonialism, India and Africa built strong relations during the Cold War, emerging together from imperial rule as part of the non-alignment movement. As India's economic growth surged, it has reignited its interest in Africa, driven by some strategic reasons that we will discuss in some time.
That was interesting. That was an interesting little display
Interest
there.
in Africa, driven
Oh, we got Modi. I didn't even notice Modi at first.
by some strategic reasons that we will discuss in some time. Between 1991 and 2022, Indian trade with Africa jumped from $893 million in 1991 to $97.8 billion in
Yeah, that's huge.
2023. The African Union is now the fourth largest trading partner for India, behind the United States, China, and the United Arab Emirates. The continent is projected to be
Well,
home
hold
base
on.
China.
The African Union, I mean, that's a lot of countries. And then you're comparing it to China, a singular country, USA, a singular country, United Arab Emirates, which is also a singular country, am I right? Yeah. So, I mean, okay, they're separate countries. Sure. They got the African Union, but you can just like think of that as like the European Union. What's the trade equivalent of the European Union on here, right? So, or like BRICS or whatever. Interesting. Then I see Hong Kong here as well, which is technically currently a part of China, even though it's kind of its own thing, and it should be its own thing. Hashtag free Hong Kong, free Tibet. Yeah. Anyways. Back to the video.
And the United Arab Emirates. The continent is projected to be home to as much as 25% of the global workforce by the end of this decade, and the regional GDP is already $2.6 trillion. Look at this map. These 6 African countries have been booming economically, having been dubbed the lion economies. They have a collective GDP of roughly...
Have they, though? Booming economically? I mean, South Africa's not doing very well based on a lot of things that I've seen. Okay.
$1 trillion US. Most of them have seen very high growth rates since 2010. This is driving Indian investments in Africa, which is projected to reach $150 billion by 2030. India has already committed $14 billion to Nigeria alone, focusing on steel, petroleum, power plants, and defense industry. Nigeria is not an isolated target for India. Elsewhere, India has bought up offshore blocks in Egypt, Côte d'Ivoire, Libya, and Sudan.
Now, India's outreach to Africa, that has hit yet...
Is this Pac-Man? Look right there. There's Pac-Man. That's Pac-Man. Sorry. Sorry, I got distracted by Pac-Man on the laptop. That's an interesting placement. I know this is a symbol for their news platform, right? I think I've seen this news network on YouTube, and that's their symbol, right? They got to cover up the Apple logo.
Another milestone. Nigeria, it secured pledges worth $14 billion from Indian investors.
Several Indian companies are actively gaining ground in different industries across the continent. For example, Indian motorcycles have taken the African market by storm due to their affordability and superior quality.
Well, India is the largest producer of like automobiles in the world, right? I would assume that's also the case with motorcycles, but don't quote me on that at all.
Brands like Bajaj and TVS dominate African roads, with Bajaj alone capturing approximately 40% of the market share. Bajaj has sold between 2.4 and 2.7 million two-wheelers in Africa, making it one of the top sellers across more than a dozen African markets.
Interesting. And you know what's crazy is you don't see any of those in the U.S. At all.
Popular Indian bike in Africa is the Bajaj Boxer, renowned for its durability and fuel efficiency, which is critical for the diverse and often challenging African terrain. Indian bikes have gained a reputation for being more reliable than Chinese models, which often suffer from poor build quality. In fact, only 2 Indian brands have managed to crush more than 160 Chinese brands across Africa.
Interesting.
This is a massive feat for India.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to drag on China here, but a lot of the Chinese, quote unquote Chinese brands, and he said 100 plus, right? It's the same kit, it's the same model, it's the same design, and all these companies are just reusing it, and they're cutting corners to build these things quickly and get them pumped out. That's just the Chinese company way, right? And you can see that for basically everything. If you go online, do any online shopping, and it's like, oh, hey, you have 100 different Chinese sellers selling the same thing but under a different name, and it's usually of an inferior quality. And again, I'm not hating on China there, but I'm speaking the truth. All right, I'm speaking the truth. I try to avoid as many made in China products as possible, which has become increasingly difficult, but yeah. Anyways.
But New Delhi's interests are not limited to infrastructure, pharma, automobiles, and petroleum, but it has some bigger plans.
हमारा लक्ष्य है कि 2024-25 तक हम एक्सपोर्ट के इस आंकड़े को $1.5 बिलियन से बढ़ाकर $5 बिलियन तक ले जाएंगे.
In April 2024, India deployed defense attachés to African countries like Tanzania, Mozambique, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Ivory Coast. A defense attaché is a military officer assigned to an embassy in a foreign country. Their job is to act as a bridge between the military of their home country and the host country, promoting their nation's military equipment, specifically focusing on defense exports. India is already making significant inroads, exporting over $500 million worth of defense equipment to African nations between 2017 and 2022.
Interesting.
For instance, Indian defense companies have supplied Dhruv advanced light helicopters and surveillance systems to Mauritius, armored vehicles to Mozambique, and Dornier patrol aircraft and radars to Seychelles. These are not significant exports worth praising, but here's what New Delhi is trying to do. On the back of these early inroads, India is now pitching new equipment like the Tejas light.
Before we get into this, okay, wow, it went right back to it. There is, okay, again, I'm not harping on China again, but I find it very funny. I believe, oh God, what was the country? Was it, oh my God, I can't remember the country. Was it Bolivia? No, was it Bolivia? Let me look at the map here. Was it Peru? Bolivia? Oh, I can't remember. I think it was Bolivia. I want to say it was Bolivia. Anyways, a couple weeks ago, there was an attempted coup. It lasted like a couple hours in a South American country. And their military had some of these armored Chinese vehicles. And one of the videos that came out of that incident that I found very funny, I don't find coups funny, but there was an incident in that happened that I found very funny, was the armored vehicle was driving and it hit a curb and the entire tire and the axle just completely shattered, basically, rendering the entire armored vehicle null and void. It's like this tiny little baby curb, just a couple feet tall, and it's just like it ruined the vehicle. Again, not harping on China, I just find it pretty funny, and it just happened to coincidentally be a Chinese armored vehicle, and we're talking about countries selling other countries their military equipment. Anyways, back to the video.
Back of these early inroads, India is now pitching new equipment like the Tejas light combat aircraft, priced at about $42 million each, and the Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher system. There's also the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile, developed jointly by Russia and India, is known for its speed, precision, and versatility, making it a highly sought-after weapon system globally. India recently delivered these missile systems to Philippines in a deal worth $375 million. And countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, and United Arab Emirates have shown interest too. If you look at this chart, India's defense exports have surged from $185 million in 2016 to $2.6 billion in 2023, exporting to over 85 countries.
Pretty big increase.
India aims to reach $5 billion in defense exports by 2025, with a big chunk expected from Africa. Of course, these exports are no match to the top arms exporters in the world, led by the United States, which is why India is focusing on countries in need of cost-effective and reliable defense solutions, and Africa fits the bill perfectly. The Druve helicopter, for example, costs around $8 million.
The Druve? The German Shepherd helicopter? I had to make the joke, okay? The comments would have pointed it out anyways. It's crazy. Sorry, I had to make the joke. I had to. All right. Okay.
Dollars, much cheaper than its Western counterparts. If we put the defense exports aside and look at the bigger picture, much of India's interests in Africa have to do with critical minerals and China.
The past 2 decades were witness to China's growth in becoming Africa's largest economic partner.
What was that?
Between 2000 and 2022, China committed a massive $170 billion to projects in Africa, driven by the Belt and Road Initiative. This 2019 map shows the true scale of Chinese investments made in this vast continent. Some of these are massive in their scale and importance. For example, the railway lines from Mombasa to Nairobi and Addis Ababa to Djibouti, connecting the important ports and financial centers of Africa. China's focus on minerals essential for the EV industry, such as cobalt and lithium, has seen substantial investments in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the country that holds over 60% of the world's cobalt reserves.
I didn't know it was
strategic moves have
60%.
not only strengthened China's role in the global EV supply chain, but also gained massive influence across the continent. But this doesn't stop anyone from being suspicious of the so-called Chinese debt trap. As a result,
That's what I was talking about earlier, the debt trap. I just didn't remember the name of it. Yeah, the Chinese debt trap is infamous, and it happens all the time.
some African countries are rethinking their relationship with China, and some are suspending contracts with Chinese firms.
Niger's military government has decided to suspend its oil exports to China.
The West African nation's consumer watchdog has now shut down the Chinese market.
In April 2020, Tanzanian President John Magufuli threatened to cancel a $10 billion project and labeled it as a killer Chinese loan. Then, Ghana scrapped a $236 million contract to develop an intelligent traffic management system.
Oh man, you don't want to give China access to all that.
And then in 2021, DRC President Felix Tshisekedi called for a review of 2008 mining contracts with China, seeking fairer terms since only China is getting richer while the DRC remains poor. On the other hand, Chinese investment inflows are also drying up. In 2016, China lent $28.5 billion in loans to African nations, but by 2022, that figure dropped to less than $1 billion. The risk is that China has overextended itself, allowing India an opportunity to intensify its reach. It won't be easy for India because China has established 25 economic and trade zones in 16 African countries, creating a strong relationship of interdependence, and India cannot dole out credit lines like China did. New Delhi is aware of these limitations and is actively seeking to establish a unique strategy in line with its strengths. So, with China and India locked into a tug-of-war, who has the best chance? But
oh man, look at that. We can't see this. Is there I wish there was a way to disable this, where this pop up for the next recommended, because it just completely blocks my video, man. Dang. Oh well.
Is it possible that Africa can be the one that gains the most from this influence war?
I mean,
as
one
they
would
deserve
hope.
to?
Yeah.
Share your opinion in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to support our work.
Yeah.
This is the
like and subscribe to their channel. The link to their channel is in the description down below. Pretty decent video. I liked it. It explained a little bit more. And I mean, I felt like I had a fairly decent understanding. I just didn't quite know the extent of everything that was going on. But yeah, I feel like I understood quite well. So yeah, remember to go and check out their channel. Link is in the description. Link to every video that I link every video that I react to, right? It's the only nice, fair thing to do. I link their video. I let any of their like sponsor ads play in their video. You know, I'm here just you know, just reacting, man. You gotta go and support these channels. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and read some comments, yeah? I admire this channel's worth. There are shit videos getting millions of views, while this gold is underrated. Not a fair world we live in, but we never give up. Taking over Africa seems to be a wrong term to use. It would be India partnering Africa for development. True. Africa and India are good partners for mutual beneficial projects. India is not in the bad habit of taking over a country. Quality over quantity. Yes. India built roads, bridges, parliament for Afghan people, and has been sending free wheat. Indians are not for the scramble of Africa, but partnering with brothers and sisters of Africa to mutually grow and become prosperous. We, India, never taking over Africa. Everything for mutual growth. Let we grow together. India always looks for win-win scenarios and deals, mutual growth, mutual respect, mutual benefits. India and Africa need to build on the bond that they already have, a giant continent and a subcontinent that has similar issues and struggles, yet with similar riches and resources. Nigeria and India is good for trade and business. Love to Africans from India. As a Indian, I like Africa so much. I will visit Africa soon. This is the best unbiased reporting of Africa-India relationship. I don't know if it was unbiased, but thanks for watching. Always treat to watch your content. Thank you. Well, Africa and India's relations were an ancient relation, which were broken by colonizers. India and Africa will be partners in this modern era today. At least someone is helping Africa. Just a friendly suggestion, please let go of the background music. It's too loud and distracts from the main content, which I find interesting, to be honest. Thank you for the suggestion, Benny. I'll work on it. Calling the man by his name and everything. Benny Thomas Lightstalker. Damn. Please don't remove it. If you need, maybe change it a little bit, but the music sounds nice. Yeah, I would say don't remove the music. World no China and West will never change their ways, and thinking so, India's only option for global economy growth. Do not compare China with India. It's insulting for China. No dirty India in Africa. I prefer they stay in their own country. Damn. Thanks for using the correct map of India. China still light years ahead of USA and India in Africa? What? You're right. Light years ahead? Do they just mean like a foothold in the infrastructure game? Maybe. Sorry, I rather do business with China. I receive too many racism from Indian. Some Chinese are racist, but they put side racism when it comes to... What are you even talking about? China is like one of the most xenophobic countries in the world. Typical 70 IQ, Q, I, Q, I, Q, I, Q, I, Q, I, Q, I, Q, Q, I, incredible. Super power, India, dreaming and bragging and boasting and dreaming and bragging and boasting and the usual talking, big shy that will never amount to anything as typical 70 QI, 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 QII, QII, QQI, QII, incredible superpower. India only brags about and boasts and brags and boasts and brags and boasts and boasts and brags and boasts and talks big shy tea, But incredible superpower India does not actually do anything despite the typical 70 QI, 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 QQQII. Incredible superpower India talking big shit and bragging and boasting and bragging and boasting and bragging and boasting dot 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 dot. Europe will certainly regret all what they had done to Africa. African also should arise and create things for themselves instead of always buying things as well. Brother, put some lighting in front and Dahira how to draw attention in front of the shop. What? I didn't get you. I didn't get them either. India, the joke. Many African countries are richer than 90% Indians. What? What does that even mean? Lol, this is no more secret than sorry, but this is yet another Modi PR India missed out last 15 years. Lol, good one, but not Modi PR. Okay. Well, not anymore. Thanks for leaking the secret, dude. We don't like to beat China in Africa. China has another intentions, but ours is having more allies and having countries with oceans and ports, as this will help in trade. So we Africans are supposed idiots, always the chessboard of superpowers and aspiring ones. From what I see, Africa has rightfully started to assert their significance in the recent times, but of course there are some issues of selected countries of foreign influence. For example, countries in Sahel region pushed back France, which is good, but was done in favor of Russia, which is not good. Okay, China is far ahead in their plans for the progress with world progress. True. Target audience think school. I love the video though. Thanks. This is something I've been getting since my videos started doing well. I guess I'll have to rename my channel. Huh. India has been in Africa for centuries, right? India can't even beat India in India. Oh, God. The tired and lazy implication that because of a few countries in Africa are going through war and in political turmoil, then why would foreigners invest in Africa is foolish. Does anyone ever see there is war in Ukraine in French or rioting, protesting? So why would a foreign company invest in another? Spain? No. Okay, we're done. We're done with comments. Thank you for watching. Again, check out the second school, right? The second school? Yeah, the second school. And yeah, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and we'll catch you next time. Take care. Goodbye.